This video is brought to you by Atlas VPN. More about them later in the video. So Marvel's newest Disney Plus show, Loki, just wrapped its first season not too long ago, and I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was pretty good. The introduction of all that new world building in the MCU, like the TVA, the function of the timekeepers, especially the explanation of the main timeline and how it all works, it was all really cool and interesting to watch. And honestly, I'm pretty pumped for a second season to see where this show can take the MCU moving forward. However, I do think it's funny that this first season also managed to dig up some fresh criticisms of Endgame's time-traveling plot, especially complaints about some of the decisions made by Steve Rogers, the former Captain America. And I'm not talking about the people complaining that old man Cap should have been pruned by the TVA for doing, well, just about anything in this movie, or even the people who argued that time traveling for an old flame and ditching friends he's known for years was both out of character and messed up his story arc. Although that would be an interesting counter video to make, to be fair. No. I'm talking about the Endgame debate, the one that's been floating around since the movie came out a few years ago. What all did Steve actually do when he decided to go back and live out his life with Peggy? Did he change anything while he was back there? Or did he willingly let pretty much every major disaster, real or MCU specific, happen so he wouldn't disturb what we now know as the sacred timeline? Now, to be fair, I'm not saying I don't understand where people who argue the dickhead Cap angle are coming from, especially since there's been non-stop confusion about how exactly time travel works in the MCU. Even though the Russo brothers, the directors of both Infinity War and Endgame, outright stated that our Captain America went to a separate timeline and basically dropped out of the main one until he came back to that bench, screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely have spread their belief that Cap actually went back in the main MCU's timeline and just made his way back to the bench the old-fashioned way. Here's what they said when asked about it by Backstory magazine. Here's how we reconcile it. We think there have always been two Caps from 1945 to, say, now, and we just didn't know that. That's the loop, right?
What kind of ignorant shit is that?
So just so I'm clear here, according to the screenwriters, we're supposed to believe that Steve Rogers, Captain fucking America, the same guy who always fights to do what he thinks is the right thing, even when it might be hard.
Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say no. You move.
The same guy who once willingly got his ass beat in an alley simply because he needed to stand up to a dickhead at his local theater. You really want me to believe that guy would just sit back and let a whole bunch of stuff like, oh, I don't know, the Chitauri invasion, Ultron's uprising and the destruction of Sokovia, the failed capturing of Crossbones leading to the Sokovia Accords, and the splitting of the Avengers, which also played a pretty big role in the snap and the resulting chaos from all that. You're telling me that Steve Rogers just let that stuff happen? I'll buy that the TVA let it happen. Hell, I'll even buy that the Eternals would let it happen. But not Steve Rogers, not Captain America. Not only is it way out of character for him to do that, but I'd argue that this scene even gives us on-screen proof that Cap not only visited a different timeline, but also had to have made substantial changes to it while he was over there. Before I get into all that though, I just want to give a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, Atlas VPN. Hi, Dr. Comics here for Atlas VPN, an amazing tool that can not only keep you safe and secure while browsing the internet, but also helps you get access to geo-restricted content on your favorite streaming platforms, all for an affordable price. Ready to watch some of your favorite shows but found out you can't because you're in the US? Just open the app and swap your country to the UK. It's that simple. Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, and more, there's all kinds of new content in store. The secret is its data encryption process. While filtering your information through one of Atlas's servers, your device gets a new IP and DNS address, allowing you to access content from all kinds of new locations while keeping your internet traffic safe and private. Atlas VPN also has a built-in feature that monitors for any kind of data breaches or data dumps. Just enter your email address. You'll never have to go without advance warning to update your passwords and stay a step ahead of hackers when you have Atlas VPN. It's even supported on all devices. And if you think that sounds good, then wait till you hear about the huge discount they're running on their 3-year deal, just $1.39 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. This deal won't last for long though, so be sure to join the over 5 million users trusting Atlas VPN worldwide and take advantage of this limited time offer by clicking the link in the description down below. Thanks again to Atlas VPN for sponsoring today's video, and with that, let's get back into the video. First things first, let's go back to the scene where we get the explanation on how time travel works in this universe.
If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future, and your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future.
In case it's still a bit unclear, this scene is trying to set up the idea that time travelers in the MCU never actually go back in time in their timeline, but rather are creating totally separate timelines the moment they show up at their intended destination. Those timelines can be altered in any way you can think of, and none of it's going to have any impact on the timeline you originally came from. That's why Nebula killing her 2014 counterpart, or Tony dusting 2014 Thanos and his army, didn't change anything from Guardians of the Galaxy up until now. It's why Loki could take the Tesseract and go on a bunch of wacky adventures, but still have spent time in Asgardian lockup not too long afterwards. And that's why Cap could make all sorts of changes to the past, like telling his past self that Bucky's alive before he's supposed to know about the Winter Soldier, or making it sound to Hydra like he's down with the cause without erasing the ass-whooping he gave any of them a few years later. That's what Banner was saying in that earlier scene. It's not possible to go back and change your past, but you could go back and change someone else's present. Basically what I'm saying is, technically, that means Super Chad here swooped in on some other guy's girl while that guy was out for a bit. Seriously though, long story short, the movie's own rules made it literally impossible for Steve to relive his time in the present after he went back to be with Peggy, so even the basic idea that he did nothing doesn't even make any sense. But even if you don't want to believe all that though, let's go back to the old man Cap scene again. Remember how he just casually busts out this brand new shield and hands it over to Sam? Yeah, it's definitely a nice passing of the torch moment, but the whole idea of Steve having a new shield in the first place is proof enough that he had to have changed something in that other timeline. I mean, did our Steve just take the shield from the other version of himself? Did he help things along so that Steve didn't feel like he needed it anymore? And what about that timeline Sam? Why wouldn't either Steve want him to have it? Plus, why does it look completely different compared to the one we saw in the MCU up until this point? Remember, this shield is supposed to have a certain look and design to it, something that's maintained every time we see it in the past. This new one, meanwhile, is a lot more segmented, I guess is the word, like each of the individual pieces that make up the shield are a lot more visible and distinct than they originally were. If our Steve took the shield of his alternate counterpart, then why wouldn't it look like the same shield Thanos destroyed in Endgame? It definitely should, unless what we're looking at is a replacement shield that Steve managed to have made instead. Which sounds fine, you know, like maybe he could have gotten Peggy to use her shield credentials and get another one made or something like that, but there's still a couple of problems there too. For one thing, the rest of the world doesn't know that Wakanda has a bunch of vibranium until the end of the Black Panther movie.
With all due respect, King T'Challa, what can a nation of farmers have to offer the rest of the world?
Up until this point, everybody's pretty much convinced that all the vibranium that exists was used to make that original shield.
This guy got out of Wakanda with some of their trade goods.
I thought your father said he got the last of it.
I don't follow what comes out of Wakanda.
The strongest metal on Earth.
So you'd think a request like that would tip off T'Chaka or T'Challa or whoever was running the country when Steve would have put this request in. Not to mention that, depending on when they're asking, Captain America would either be on ice or have a perfectly usable shield. So there would definitely be some questions if a guy claiming to be him suddenly showed up and started asking for a new shield. And even assuming that Steve or Peggy were able to slip in a request to get some more vibranium, they would still need to get it processed and formed the right way. I mean, I know Steve's supposed to be pretty good at a lot of things, but working with the strongest metal on Earth and putting together his own shield with it? Yeah, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they had to have some help for that one. Which means they'd still have to tell at least one other person who he is to get what they want, and could end up altering that timeline a ton because of it. So yeah, regardless of how you slice it, Steve has to be willing to change that other timeline at least a little bit if he wants to get a new shield for Sam, which he obviously did. And if he's already willing to change even a little bit of what all's going on over there, then why wouldn't he help that timeline along in other ways too if he could, especially when we already know it would fit his character to do so. And really that question just opens up a ton of possibilities when you stop and think about it. Because there's so many different times a good person with future knowledge could have stepped in and tried to change something for the better. Like, what if he helped the government find Bucky early and stopped him from serving as the Winter Soldier for too long? What if he got the rest of the world on board with an anti-Thanos plan, well in advance of the Mad Titan's arrival? Could Thanos even get any of the Earth-based stones if humanity and all the super geniuses got together to really make an Ultron-type program work? What if he rooted out Hydra and got S.H.I.E.L.D. all cleaned up before the start of Project Insight? I mean, really though, what would the world look like if somebody like Captain America took charge and got things straightened out? Could be an interesting video at least. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see me do at some point. Either way though, circling back to the main point of this video, I definitely don't agree with the idea that Steve just sat around and did nothing in this other timeline, even knowing that things would have played out fine in the end. That's just my opinion at least. Personally, I'd love to know what either the directors or the screenwriters think about any of this, but I suppose we'll have to wait and see if they end up working with that side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe again in a future project or something. But anyways guys, that's my take on why exactly Captain America had to have changed that alternate timeline he went to in Avengers Endgame. If you guys agreed with anything I said in this video, or if you have your own thoughts you want to throw out there, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.